The beautiful part about the spiritual process is that you only have to tend to yourself. You don't have to try to change or manipulate or work on anything outside of yourself. This entire work is to be done right here within. To purify the mind of all these wrong ideas, of all these negative energies, of all these limitations, of all these identifications. You just have to be alert and attentive, and your own experience will guide you. Your own experience, the life situations and circumstances, the people, they will bring to the surface what is unconscious within you. They will bring to the surface these energies of fear, envy, greed, jealousy, attachment, desire, expectation, wanting, needing. And it is these energies which you have to relinquish identification with, relinquish a sort of relationship with. And you will see that as you go through this, not only will your life become more harmonious, but you will yourself grow more content, and you will yourself deepen and deepen your understanding of what you are, free of all these qualities, of all these energies. But all this work is to be done just tending to yourself. This work is not to prove to others how spiritual you are. This work is not to change or manipulate your experience to gain or to reduce or to avoid something. On the outside, you may have nothing to show for the work you are doing within. But inwardly, your attitude to what is now on the outside is very, very different. The way you experience life, what you know yourself to be, the relationship you have with the circumstances of your life is very, very different. And that is what ultimately matters. As you go through these experiences and these energies are rising, it is you who has to become attentive of all these things within you. The mind is always creating these narratives and scenarios, trying to change others, trying to paint other people out to be bad, like they're victimizing you. It always wants things from others. It always wants things from experience. It is always making you go in all sorts of chases for this and that because it wants happiness, or it wants to prove something to someone else. It will make you feel like, oh, you're doing so much for the world, or you're doing so much for other people, your family, your partner, but they're not doing as much for you. It's going to paint out all these scenarios in your mind, and it is you who has to see these scenarios arise and no longer believe in them, no matter how truthful they may seem in that moment. No matter if any circumstance is staring directly at you in the face, telling you that this is what is. In that moment, you have to know that it is simply a reflection of these sorts of mental energies. The image of fear is not just the feeling of fear, but it is that fearful circumstance showing you, yes, there is something to be fearful of. But here, you are waking up to a deeper reality. And you stay established in that truth. You stay established in your being. And instead of giving in to the images and believing in what arises as the truth, you simply see it and allow it to be, but not attaching yourself to it, not believing in its story, not perpetuating it through belief and attention. Always choosing the highest option that you have in any given moment, always seeing, this decision that I'm about to make. Is it coming from love, or is it coming from these lower energies of separation and limitation? These lower energies which continue to impose the idea of you as a separate, limited person, and everything else being separate from you, from the motivation of gain, selfishness, right? So always in this moment, not believing in the mental narrative, the story that the mind is painting out, and always coming from choosing the highest option available to you. Always act according to your greatest understanding. There's a quote by Nisargadatta Maharaj. He said, the only sin is to act in a way that is not, or that is contradicting your greater understanding. When you act in contradiction to what you understand, you're committing sin, and you personally will experience the consequences of those energies. When you choose these lower energies, it's not like you're being punished for it in the future. It is simply you buy into these energies, and they are what now again and again continue to show up in your life. So this circumstance that, like maybe you're buying into the fear, or you're buying into some sort of negative projection about your partner, that they don't do as much as you do and whatnot, and you buy into that and you express that. Not only will you create some sort of conflict in the now, but let's just say the conflict goes away and everything's back to normal. Soon again, you will be confronted with this sort of energy once again, with a different circumstance in a similar way, right? It's just a different circumstance, or the same type of circumstance with a different face. And this is why people continue to create a lot of repetitive patterns in their life. It is not the patterns that are the problem. It is not the circumstance staring at you in the face that is the problem. It is not the situation that is causing you a lot of unpleasant feelings that is the problem. It is your repetitive and habitual attitude towards this recurring circumstance that is the problem. And because you don't change where you are coming from, because you don't choose the higher energies and make your decision from a greater understanding, because you are not alert and attentive, you continue to, give in to these energies and then just continue to recreate them. So in this way, truly, there is nothing to change, there is nothing to do, there is nothing to go towards. Simply be. But be here, attentive, alert, and don't just be aware of circumstances and things, but be aware of your mind itself, not being in the mind, immersed, but rather being the watcher of it. See, rather than like the content of the fear and what it's talking about, simply be aware that the fear is there, and see the narrative that it's sort of creating within you without believing in it. It is just a voice arising and subsiding that you are the awareness of. You have nothing to say about it. You have no reaction of your own to it. And by watching it in this way, you sort of diminish its energy. It no longer is relevant for you. It no longer captivates you. And it ceases to create these projections within your circumstances, right? Because your circumstances are a direct reflection of your psyche. And in order to clear up these constant friction in your circumstances, you have to start right here in your psyche, in the thoughts that are arising. And you cannot just do that by being in the mind. You have to place yourself, realize yourself as prior to the mind. And this is not something that happens through years of spiritual practice. Here and now, simply recognize that you are already prior to the mind. That is the mind does not know what's beyond it. The mind is not what knows itself. It is you that knows the mind. You see the mind arise and subside. That which knows the mind is already prior to it. It's not rocket science. And here, don't go again within the mind to interpret what I'm saying. Simply be quiet and see if this is the case. Confirm this for yourself. Again, an interpretation arises and it says, oh, but maybe this is just the mind watching the mind. But see, something is aware of that thought, that it itself is not offering any commentary on it, any judgment or interpretation of it. That silent awareness, that knowingness of even these concerns is what you are, is what is prior to it. So don't go into the interpretations and the fears and the judgments and the fears. Be the watcher of it. And go through experience in this way. And your life itself, regardless of if you're successful or failure, or regardless of if you have a lot or have nothing, your life itself will become your greatest teacher. It will bring all these energies to the surface sooner or later, and you will be able to, little by little, go beyond it. Right? To go beyond the mind, you must come to know the mind. Right now, you don't know yourself. You don't know the mind either. You just act on impulse. You just act according to your conditioning. This is you really sort of creating some sort of distance, some sort of space from which you're able to view not only the circumstances, but also the mind. And through it, always acting from a deeper truth. Call it love, call it life itself. And through it, right, why are we doing this? Not for the sake of being good, okay? Not for the sake of being holy. We're doing it to purify the mind of its wrong ideas and convictions and concepts and identifications. You can yourself see anytime you choose the lower energies, you create dysfunction and suffering in your life. You don't connect this because, again, you're not alert and attentive. It is easy, very, very easy and very clear that as you become more attentive, you start to notice this. When you are unconscious and you're choosing these lower energies, you create dysfunction. When you always choose the higher path, the highest option, when you come from love, from understanding, from compassion, from silence, you create order and harmony. Not by doing something, but just that choice itself has within it the seed of harmony. And circumstances themselves unfold in this way. And you yourself start to have a greater access to the intelligence prior to mind. Again, it's not a doing, it is just a happening. So tend to yourself only. Don't seek answers in other people, in situations. Don't dive into these patterns. Simply become aware of these energies and no longer react to them, no longer dive into them. Choose the highest option and use your experience to deepen your understanding. Don't just go through experience for the sake of, chasing the experience. The experience is waking you up to something greater than experience itself. And for this, each experience is valuable. You sitting here watching the video, but also you maybe sitting there later by yourself versus you being in an argument with your partner, or you having some business trouble, or you having some health issue. All experiences deeply valuable. So use it for this. For a spiritual seeker, there is no other thing to do. It is simply to be and to go through life, to become aware of what one is not, and thereby becoming aware of what you essentially are, seeing yourself in all your purity. Not that you can attribute any quality or shape to it, but just seeing yourself as that essence from where you see, from where you know. Practice. Thanks for watching this video. Just 2 things before you go. If you want to learn how to implement the teaching that we cover on this channel in a step-by-step format and really develop your understanding of it in a faster way, make sure to watch my free 1-hour class that I'm offering right now. And second, if you want to work with me personally to help you dissolve mind identification and return to peace through self-inquiry, check out my program down below. It's called the Higher Consciousness Shift. Enrollments are now open, so just check out the details and book your free call, and we'll see if it's right for you. That's all I have for you today. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next video.